Welcome back, Nerdy Sports, Nerdy Bunch audience. I'm your host, Tim, and joining me as always is my friend Scotty.
Yes.
Today, we are going to talk about the NFL. Baseball playoffs is heating up. NBA season's only a couple weeks away. Hoping to bring you guys our annual Over-Unders podcast next episode for the NBA. But today, we want to talk NFL. Last week, we ran down the first quarter of the NFL season, highlighting every single 32 team in the NFL. And today we want to kind of have a deeper dive into, let's say, 8 teams or so, our favorite teams per division. And first and foremost, I want to talk about the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. Two teams that are locked in to their division, two teams that haven't exactly performed on the field as well as you would hope based on their power rankings. Two teams that lost this week. So now all of a sudden we have no undefeated team in the NFL. And the only team that hasn't won is the New York Jets. So Scotty, you pick first. Buffalo, Philadelphia.
You know what? I'm going to take my cake over my broccoli. So more exciting team. I think the more exciting team is Buffalo. Just visually watch there. So we're going to go Buffalo. I think Buffalo actually has a little bit of problem here because we thought they were going to steamroll the division, and I think they're going to have to battle. Last week we were talking easiest schedule remaining, but watching what New England did to them, it makes me feel that they're going to have to battle for this division. Maybe that would be good for them. We even talked about sometimes you could get complacency, you have too big of a lead. But I think they're going to have to battle for this division. We'll mention the Eagles in a second, where I still think even though the Eagles have some issues, I think they're not going to have too much trouble winning this division just because of competition. Buffalo, I think, is going to have to battle. I don't know what Buffalo is because they're 4-1, but they haven't beaten a good team. Because if you say Baltimore is not good and they barely beat them, so it's not even like a good win, you could argue the comeback. Then they have wins over the Dolphins, the Saints, like the Jets. Like these are not good wins. Then they lose to the only team above 500 they played because Baltimore's not. So I think Buffalo's on a little bit of shaky ground, and I wonder, in comparison to Baltimore, and I'll even throw in the Chiefs here, like those three teams have been the AFC. That's been like the cream of the crop of the AFC. You could throw in the Bengals because they made the one Super Bowl, even though regular season the Bengals have struggled. All three of those teams have some issues. Buffalo has the best record, but you almost feel like, is it a change of the guard? Are the windows closing, those Super Bowl windows? Because, the Chiefs are down this year. The Ravens are really down, and Buffalo doesn't look like a world beater to me. So I kind of wonder if maybe it's a little bit of a change in the guard. Could a new team jump there? Could somebody like the Colts come out of nowhere and win the AFC to the Super Bowl? Like that. Maybe Denver people love. So I want to see Buffalo do something good in the next couple of weeks. I know that it's hard to prove much because they have an easy schedule, but I need to see that they can still own this division, that they've won. I think it's like 6 straight years they're going on. They've been owning this division basically since Tom Brady left. I need to see that they can still do that against a New England team that has something to say. So that I find very interesting for me.
That's crazy that you take the New England Patriots as a team that could actually beat them in the division. I mean, look, they just beat them last week, but I don't think so. I think the Patriots are substantially worse. I think that's a great win for them.
Okay.
They definitely jumped up in the power rankings as a team that potentially can make the playoffs. But, when you talk about division odds, at least with Vegas, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well as Buffalo Bills and Philadelphia Eagles as the teams that they consider locks to win the division.
Yes.
Yes, the Bills are only 1 game ahead of the Patriots. That loss sucks. That loss is really bad. And yeah, they really haven't beat anybody. But I still think they're tremendously better. I mean, this is a team that's number 1 in power rankings last week. Yeah, they drop a little bit. Crazy enough, I did want to bring up their DVOA ranking is 9th. So they're barely a top 10 team in terms of like performance on field, statistically speaking. Now there's big outliers in all those. And sadly, the Philadelphia Eagles are 11th. And yeah, I kind of see it. I'm not too excited about what I've seen on paper. Like they've had some big wins, comeback performances, some great passing plays. Saquon Barkley clearly is not doing well when it comes to, the Madden curse. It's still alive. That O-line can't block anybody. But once again, are the Cowboys or the Commanders really going to win that division? I agree with Vegas. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a lock as well. Look, that's a garbage division. I feel like the way we're talking, that's probably the biggest lock of all the division odds. Tampa Bay was a team we've been talking week in, week out. Scotty was the first to say it, and I jumped on his bandwagon early. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you got to take seriously. Baker Mayfield is the
Yeah.
MVP right now. This is a team that's all of a sudden fourth in the power rankings. And crazy enough, they are 18th in DVOA rankings. This is a team that has comeback performances, game wins, but I like the championship pedigree that they're building. And honestly, when you think about their performance in regards to how the organization's built, they build it just like the Philadelphia Eagles. They don't worry about their weaknesses. They double up
Hmm.
on strengths. They get the best player
Yeah.
possible. They don't care what other people are going to think. They're just looking to build the best team possible and not like have everybody mediocre like the Patriots when Bill Belichick was
Hmm.
their GM and head coach. They just were trying to fill voids, 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 and they kept missing. They drafted guys like N'Keal Harry just because they were like, we really need a wide receiver. So we'll get like the eighth best wide receiver. Well, Emeka Ibuka is clearly the number one wide receiver this year, sorry,
Yeah.
in terms of the rookies, clearly.
For
And they have
sure.
Mike Evans, they have Chris Godwin. They're fine. They're like, look, we're going to pound the offense. And their defense is good
Hmm.
enough right now. They're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Look, their DVOA ranking's only 18th because statistically they have tight games. They're not really like outperforming
Hmm.
these teams tremendously, but I love it when you win tight games. I think sometimes,
I
like the
do too.
Bills, they have blowout wins. They are plus 40 in point differential. But
Hmm.
like you said, they haven't really fully beat anybody great. They had a tight win versus
Well,
the Ravens, and the Ravens right now are 22nd in DVOA. That's
all right, I'm going to give
terrible.
you a, a stat against Buffalo, and I know this is also it's going to be against Tampa too, but to me that's a separate thing um, because Tampa's beat up and still winning. If you just go separate by division, because we're 5 games in, so that your opponents are starting to become more similar to your division opponents, like who you're playing, your schedule. Buffalo is the only team to lead any of the 8 divisions that is losing like the points allowed. Their points allowed is 113. New England is 103. So what I'm saying is most of the division winners have a good points allowed difference. They're not. I question that, especially against the teams that they're playing. Like I said, I really question those close games that can they win them because the playoffs come and they always seem to come short. It's normally the Chiefs. So I'm a little worried about that. But okay, maybe I'm overreacting a little bit. I don't know. I liked what I saw from New England. I was watching that game to standalone. So standalone games, they stick out a little more. So I like what I see from there. If you want to talk about division winners, I want to go back to Thursday and talk about the Rams and the Niners. That
Hmm.
game kind of goes under the radar because it's a Thursday game, so it's easy to forget about. Like, but what do we take away from there? Like that division's got 3 great teams. I'm not sure where to go on that one. You have the Niners, who I was knocking, saying they had to beat up. We gave the division grade. I gave him like a C. Now Mac Jones, he would be leading the NFL if he was starting for 6 games, projected out in yards per game. I think it was 301. 301. They're 4-1, and it's just interesting. And I still like Seattle. Sam Darnold looks good. Minnesota's got to be kicking themselves a little bit with their situation. JJ McCarthy, Carson Wentz. The Rams, Matthew Stafford's having statistically his best year in like a decade. So what do we make about that division? Want to revisit that after I gave the Niners a C? I think you were a little nicer than last year, and now they're winning the division.
Yeah, what a win, man. What a win. Yeah, it really sucked that Kyron Williams got the fumble on the goal line. He almost got 3 touchdowns. Oof, that was tough. But their division's interesting. I think Seattle's one of the best bets in football right now. So they're plus 450 after that loss versus Tampa Bay for their division. And right now, they're only one game behind. And they're plus 41 point differential versus San Francisco's plus 8. Their defense is performing really well. Sam Darnold's doing even better than last year. San Francisco does have an easy, schedule, as we keep talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
look, it was a good win, and the Rams are really good. But like, I think it's pretty much a coin flip between all of them. And you got Seattle at plus 450, the Rams at plus 200, and San Francisco at minus 120. That doesn't make sense to me. I think it should be way more even, way closer to some of these other divisions.
Yeah. So you're
Something
saying I
like,
could I could bet Seattle and the Rams, and if either one of them win, I could still make money.
yeah, exactly. You're just betting that the San
I feel like
Francisco
I'm getting
49ers
two
basically
chances.
won't
Yeah, you're
win.
basically betting the Niners lose.
Another similar
So
division to
good.
that is the AFC West, a team in the Kansas City Chiefs that, have been dominating this division. But the Denver Broncos and the Los
Mm.
Angeles Chargers are two of the best teams this year in terms of performance on field. Denver Broncos, we weren't buying too much, but that was a really good win versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I know we're all over the place with the Eagles, but still, defending champs, one of the most talented teams in the game. The Denver Broncos coming in there, Bo Nix performing pretty well, having some big plays. Right now that division's pretty even. You have the Los Angeles Chargers at plus 165, Kansas City Chiefs at plus 185, Denver Broncos at plus 190. I feel like the I feel like the NFC West, odds wise, should be way closer to the AFC West.
AFC West is interesting. I mean, the Raiders are trash, but the other three teams, it does feel like it's up for grabs. I've been down on the Broncos, so I'll go the opposite direction for a little bit and compliment them and say they lead in the division by a decent margin in plus point differential. And defense travels. It's a thing in the NFL forever. Say defense travels. So they hold Philly was scoreless in the second half, I believe it was, or you were watching the game, I'm sure. That matters to me. The Chargers, meanwhile, even though they're winning the division technically, like they're starting to fall apart. They got injuries. They're heading backwards. Momentum to me is showing them go way backwards. So I think it looks like it'll come down to Denver and Kansas City to me. I think the Chargers are going to start slipping more. That was a bad loss to Washington, and with injuries on their offensive line, I don't know if I could trust the Chargers not just being chargering or chargery, whatever they are. There's a saying for that. But I still like the Chiefs to win it, but it definitely is anybody's game. I really want to see the Chiefs play the Broncos later in the year, like even just the first game, to really get a better grasp. And if they get Rashid Rice back, how that affects the offense. But bad loss for the Chiefs against Jacksonville. That could have put them probably into arguably the driver's seat of the division, in my opinion.
Yeah, really bad loss. I don't know if that's the worst loss, KC or the Bills. Jacksonville tried to give
Yeah,
that game away. Fourth quarter interception by Trevor Lawrence. I thought they were, let's blow it again. And Pat Mahomes, he put up 60 rushing yards, 318 passing yards.
yeah,
He's been performing well. And yeah, they don't, Tyquan Thornton's their best wide receiver right now. So they're missing Hollywood Brown being like a difference maker that he was in Baltimore.
hmm
They're missing Rashi Rice, of course. You know, it's really tough, but I got to pick KC there. I mean, that Los Angeles Chargers loss, it was Daniel's first game back from injury, and they lost by 17 points. That's pretty bad. And then on the other side, you got the Denver Broncos. Yeah, it was pretty impressive. I mean, you're down 17-3 going into the fourth quarter, and then you win the game
hmm
versus the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. Oh, like devastating
Yep.
loss for Philly. It was pathetic what they put up. But the Denver Broncos, speaking of that defense, fantasy football wise, they have the third best defense versus quarterbacks, 10th versus running backs, sixth versus wide receivers, and eighth versus tight
Jesus,
ends. Right? Atlanta's actually
top
pretty
10
damn
every
good,
category.
by the way. They're like the only other
Yeah,
team that's top 10 in all categories. Atlanta's defense, as we talked about, is pretty sneaky. But like Denver, I don't know. Maybe. If
maybe.
KC can't do it, I feel like that's a good bet. I mean, plus 190 is pretty good odds. They were plus 460 before the Philadelphia Eagles game. Then immediately after they won, plus 280. And then all of a sudden, as right before the podcast, plus 190. The odds are moving tremendously. All the money's going in on Denver. People are buying into this.
And that's yeah. I mean, I still take Kansas City a little more, but Denver's there. I'm starting to change my tune on them a little bit. I've been down on them, so I gotta see if that first Kansas City game. When do they play Kansas City? They don't play them till way late in the year. They don't play them till November 16th is their first game. Then they play in just on Christmas Day, which
Yeah,
could
they
be
got the
interesting. How about a Christmas Day game to win the division? I bet that's on Amazon Prime. Amazon has got Jeff Bezos is probably licking his lips like, give me that, give me Christmas Day to win the division. I would love to see that the ratings on that one. So
Yeah,
that could
that's
be
a
good.
good one. But once again, are you going to pick Pat Mahomes or Bo Nix? I don't care how good that
Pat
defense
Mahomes.
is. Pat Mahomes later in life, like,
Yeah,
he's fine. Denver Broncos got the Jets in London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this week, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. They're winning that game. You'd be a fool to pick against them right now. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're leading the league. They're going to
just
be
like
4 and
that.
2 after that, and then the Chargers are going to feel it. And we see the Chargers. They're in Miami. Who knows? We don't like Miami at all, but that spread's only minus 3.5. Like There's something sneaky going on there. That's suspicious to me.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a stay away game for me. Something
Yes.
sounds fishy, pun intended. But speaking of leading the league, if somebody told you from the future, 5 weeks in, that a three-way tie, two of the teams for the AFC are the Colts and the Jaguars. Could anybody believe that? It, 4-1 teams. You got Buffalo, okay, that makes sense. And the other
Right.
two teams tied are the Colts and the Jaguars, which I think everybody had out of the playoffs, never mind winning the division, and certainly not tied for winning the conference. And by strength of schedule wise, the Colts are actually listed as number one, Bills two, Jaguars three. I mean, wow, I'm pretty shocked about that one. You have the Colts also are leading the AFC, not the NFL, but the AFC in points scored at 163 points. Buffalo is second at 153, so decent margin, 10 points more. They have the biggest point differential in the NFL also at
Hmm.
74.
Hmm.
So, which is high. Second is Detroit, who look how like they look like such a high-powered offense. They're at 62, so they're 12 points ahead on that, which is a lot. That's over 2 points a game into the season as far as over 5 games. The Colts are looking just phenomenal, and then you have Jacksonville, who feels like more of a sneaky 4-1. Like I didn't even realize they're 4-1 until I looked at it, even though they beat the Chiefs. I don't know what to say about the AFC South. Like it's always kind of a weird division, and generally, but the difference is generally it's been like a tight division where the winner gets 9 wins. What if this year it's like last year's NFC North? We had like Detroit, Minnesota. We might have two teams battling with like 13 wins at the end of the season. I mean, I don't even really know what to say about the division. It's the shock division. It's just pure shock. It's hard for my brain to even wrap ahead what's happening.
I think the Colts winning the division at plus 100 is my second favorite bet.
Okay.
Potentially Pittsburgh at, plus 110. I did
Hmm.
already mention to the Nerdy Sports audience last week I would have picked them up at plus 280, with the Lamar Jackson injury or multiple games ahead. The Baltimore Ravens are terrible. Speaking about how good Denver is on defense, the Baltimore Ravens are 31st versus quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers in fantasy. If if you're
Wow.
picking anybody, you got to start whoever the Ravens are playing, whoever the Ravens are playing, even if Lamar Jackson's on the field, because that's only going to be better because there's going to be way more scoring if Lamar Jackson's
Yeah,
on
be
the
more
field.
competitive.
But
Jeez. Oh, I
it's
didn't know
tough for
that.
me to say now that it's plus 110 that I still feel as strong about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just like those odds, similar to how I feel about Seattle at plus 450. Like, that's just too big of a margin between first and third. And right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing decent. They're 3-1. Nobody's great in that division. But so I
No.
guess you kind of pick them. But I like Indiana's chances to win their division way more than the Steelers. Like, are you really going to buy? Yeah, it's crazy that I'm going to say this, but I have way more faith in Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones over Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Yes, like you said, point differential, number one. One of the best defenses in football right now, Indiana Colts. Also, Jonathan Taylor, best fantasy player you could possibly imagine. Second to Puka Nakua. I got the Colts. Like, Colts are winning this division. I think you want to pick like everybody's potentially going on Jacksonville after the KC win. KC hasn't
Hmm.
found their flow yet. They're not a team that's going to find their flow early, I feel, for many years. Like, you want to go and pick the Colts. Colts have been consistent each and every week. And who are they playing this week? What do we got going on? I
The
actually
Colts
think they're
Cardinals.
off. Colts
Oh,
Cardinals. Ooh,
yeah, they should win that game.
I love the
Seven and a
minus
half point
seven and a
favorites.
half. Yeah, so you got the seven
And
and a half
by
point
comparison,
favorites.
we have Jacksonville versus Seattle. They could definitely lose that game. Matter of fact, I would take Seattle personally.
Exactly. So if you're picking them now, you want to pick them this week compared to next week.
Yeah, because then
You
the
know,
odds, if that happens, as say now they pick up a full game lead, 5-1,
hmm
say versus 4-2, the odds going to change dramatically. So I think that's a good call by you. Yeah, I do like the Colts. It's really strange as a Giants fan. It's like doubly strange to watch Daniel Jones playing so well. At my brain, it makes it harder to really comprehend that. But I mean, I agree with you. You look at the point differential is a big one, 74 to 27. So we might have got the same record. Jacksonville was kind of skating by on some wins here and there, where the Colts were doing great. And the Colts' one loss is as good a loss as you could have. Like they lost to a good Rams team that they could have won, especially to have the touchdown that the kid kind of drops. I don't want to call out anybody, but like as far as losses go, that's not a bad loss at all. Every team, I feel like some teams have worse losses. I feel every team, maybe not every team, got a relatively bad loss. They don't have a bad loss at all. That's not bad at all. You can't be upset at that. So yeah, I mean, I can't believe that. I think the Colts win the division, and in that division, I mean, the Colts could easily win what, 12 games? I mean, they're 4-1 already. They'd say they win next week, they'd be 5-1. I don't see why they can't win 12, maybe even 13.
I think one note I do want to make before we move on to a different division is the Houston
Yeah,
Texans. When you talk
yeah.
about
Then we
fantasy
buried it last
football,
week.
look, they're 2-3. Vegas isn't even giving them odds to win this division. I still like the Colts. I want to be very clear on that. But when you're talking fantasy football, you don't want to start anybody versus the Texans. They're first
No,
against quarterbacks, ninth against running backs, third against wide receivers, seventh against tight ends. That's domination. They are really doing very, very well right there. Same with the Atlanta Falcons, another team that's not going to win that division. Fourth versus quarterbacks, second versus running backs, fifth versus wide receivers, first versus tight ends. Some dominant defenses from teams that we don't have faith in because you're not gonna. I mean, Penix. I can't believe CJ Stroud is this bad, but like, yeah, it's not clicking. Their defense is
I
amazing,
mean,
but they're only putting up 108 points compared to 61
well, the
points
points
against
allowed,
is
61.
incredibly.
The second best in the NFL. Second best in the
Yeah.
NFL is Denver at 84. That's a pretty substantial gap. A 23-point gap over 5 games. That's a huge gap to just be second best. That's almost 5 points difference per game
Yeah, but
for
they're
the
only
first five
averaging like
games.
20
That's
points a game. You
Yeah,
can't trust a
they
team
can't
that can't even
score at
put up
all.
3 touchdowns. But yeah, it's crazy. They've played 5 games, let up not even 2 touchdowns a game. 61
But
points, just like you're
five
saying,
is
23. It's a big gap. That's
that's
a huge
crazy.
gap compared to 177 for the Baltimore Ravens. Woo!
Yeah, they
What a
gave up,
difference.
what is that, like 12 points a game? That's crazy.
Yeah, very cool.
Less than 2 touchdowns.
All right, another team we've been basically putting into the gutters, the Green Bay Packers. This is a team
Mm.
that people still won't give up on. They are ninth in Sharps power rankings. They're really good. They are seventh in DVOA rankings. They're performing really well. They're 2-1-1. Detroit Lions 4-1. Detroit Lions, as we mentioned, have scored 174 points. They are putting up a lot of points, plus 62 point differential. But their division odds, even though they have a game and a half lead, only plus 150. Or sorry, 105. Plus 105 compared to the Packers plus 120. Like, you got to take the Lions here. I don't know what people are seeing in the Packers to make them think that they're going to come out and all of a sudden dominate the end of the season. But I didn't like the Packers preseason with all this hype. I definitely don't like them after the first 5 weeks.
I do feel like we've never fully bought in, which I feel proud of, so to say, because they are third in the division. We say in the beginning, first couple weeks, we had them ranked like fifth best to win the Super Bowl. I think we were talking about teams like the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, even the Eagles. So, yeah, I like the Lions better. They have the better record. The only thing that Lions don't have is they have the loss to Green Bay, which, yeah, it's bad to lose to your opponent, but it's okay when it's a division opponent actually because you get a second shot at them. So, if it we early people were talking about when they thought Baltimore would be good, losing to the Bills. What's bad about that is you don't get a second shot to redeem that. They'll get another shot, the Packers, later this season. They look much better. They got the number one total point scorer this year, number two differential. Green Bay has the honor of what I would consider the worst loss in the NFL this year. The loss to the Cleveland Browns, I think, is the worst in single loss there is in the
Yeah.
NFL. You talk about like the Titans lost to Arizona was like the weirdest loss, but I mean, as far as like for a Super Bowl contending team, that's the worst loss you can have. And then the Cowboy game was a big one for me too, and the Cowboys are better than I thought. But coming off of that loss, so you could say, okay, it's a trap game. We weren't thinking straight. Micah's revenge. I thought he's going to motivate the rest of the team, and instead they give up 40. Like, what is that? They're just, I don't know. Maybe they're immature. They are the youngest team in the NFL, maybe a
Mhm.
little too young. I like Detroit, and right now Minnesota just seems like a stopgap in the way. I am surprised they have a better record than Green Bay, but I wouldn't touch them as a bet, even though they do have. I think I have to mention them just because they are 3-2. But yeah, I think Detroit is the bet. You're actually getting. You said you're getting slightly better odds than Green Bay, so why wouldn't I want that?
Now may be a tough time. I think we're going to learn a lot over the next 2 weeks before their bye week. So they got
Hmm.
in Kansas City, Sunday Night Football this weekend. Then Monday Night Football hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then week 8, they have a bye week. And then after that, honestly, their schedule's pretty easy. They're playing like Philly, they're playing the Packers and the Rams. Outside of that, everybody's easy. So I just don't get the Packers hype. The Lions have, obviously they don't have Ben Johnson this year, and everybody's like their offense is going to, not be able to produce as well, but they're putting up 174 points. They're dominating right
Yeah,
now,
still number
and their
one.
defense is still pretty good. It's not terrible. Their defense is putting up some
No, no,
solid stats.
very good.
Green Bay's doing a little better defensively, but just barely, just barely. So I would much rather have one of the best offenses in football. I think once again, I love the Lions as division odds, even Tampa where they're at because I feel that's an absolute lock. It's easy money. You could just
Yeah,
jump in a
that's the
parlay.
free money one.
Denver, their odds are moving a little too heavy. Indiana plus 100 and Seattle, as I said before, plus 450. That's just too crazy of odds for how good they're performing right now. This is a team that's second in DVOA right now. And yeah, I know it's only statistically, but they're looking amazing. And they're a team that people, aren't even considering a top 10 team yet. If they keep the consistency up, like these odds are going to be moving quickly, similar to the Denver Broncos. So you want to jump on the bandwagon before it's moving too fast.
Right.
Is there any other
Uh,
bets you really like this week? Just season
well, I
long?
feel like to finish off the division, the only
Yeah.
division we didn't go a deep dive in was your Eagles. I don't know if we need to
Well,
do that deep a dive, but just because we kind of mentioned every other division, and you did mention the odds for every other division. I mean, Philly still seems like a lock because I
they're a
can't buy
lock,
into
yeah.
Washington. You could say the one best thing you could say about Washington is they're 3-0 when Jaden Daniels plays. I believe it's 3-0. But at the other hand, you have to question he's got such a small frame. You don't wish an injury on anybody, but he's been injured twice. He was injured last year, but played through it, and you could see there's like a slump during those 3 games. He's injured this year, and they look like the classic pullback team. There's always like the one team that gets to say conference finals, whether AFC or NFC, that kind of has like a pullback the next year. I feel like that's Washington. Uh, my Giants, I'm happy that Jackson Dart looks like the guy, but now you lose neighbors. And the team is overall not looking great. I think this could be ugly tonight. I'm hoping not. And the Cowboys, much better than I thought they'd be, but I don't think they can compete in this division. So I don't think there's too much to go on that. I would still think the Eagles are an easy bet, but I bet the odds, you have the odds there. I doubt the odds pay well enough to waste money on, if you will.
Yeah, it's too crazy. I don't know the exact number, but right before the podcast, as I mentioned earlier, the Buccaneers, the Bills, and the Eagles are all pretty much locks to win their division. I felt like it wasn't really too much to talk about. I feel like we talk about the Eagles plenty this week. Every podcast. I mean, look, they are the defending champs. It's not just because they're my favorite team. I think they deserve to have a lot of, discussion throughout the
Hmm.
nation, every podcast. Something everybody's talking about is Giannis Antetokounmpo to the Knicks, and I feel that's absolute garbage. I know we'll save NBA
Hmm.
for next week, but just want to mention that to the Nerdy Sports audience. I think that's just wild. There's absolutely nothing I see the Knicks can do to get Giannis. They're not getting rid of Karl Anthony Towns and
No.
Anunoby just to get Giannis. I'm sure they would do whatever they can. They have no draft picks. They have absolutely nothing to give them. I don't think Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to move, period. I think he's locked in with Milwaukee. But once
Yeah,
again, we can
I
save
can't
more of
see that
that for next
happening.
week. Yeah, I mean, another thing I did want to point out, we kind of mentioned it before, there's 3 teams with minus 7.5. I mean, we're not going to get, the nerdy sports audience to be able to bet on the Eagles tonight, but I feel like minus 7.5 is one of those bets that like you're looking for a blowout. It's just over a
Yeah.
touchdown, basically saying there's going to be an absolute blowout, and we're really expecting these teams to outperform. I believe it's the Rams. Here, sorry.
Yep.
Give me one second.
Got the
I
Rams, the
lost.
Colts, and the Eagles.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I mean, look, these are three of the teams that we're talking about being some of the best, and
Hmm.
I think those are great odds to hop on. Are there any odds you're looking at this week that you feel nerdy sports audience should bet on?
Yeah, I like Seattle this week. Seattle's favored by 1.5 against Jacksonville. I think that Seattle's the better team, honestly, even though records are technically they're worse. I also think that Jacksonville, you could be looking off them coming from a come down. They're coming off a high. They're beating Kansas City. First time they beat Kansas City in Trevor Prince and the Trevor Lawrence era, and it was a Monday night game, so they got a little less rest. So I think Seattle 1.5. I like that game at the bet. It's basically money line, pick them at 1.5. So I like that one a lot. That's the one that jumps out at me to take. As much as I've been praising Tampa, and I will continue to praise Tampa, I don't want to touch Tampa at 49ers. I think I don't know, it seems fishy to me with the way the 49ers are playing. And the Packers, I don't, it's not so much a bet, but more just a game that I need to see the Packers dominate the Bengals. The Bengals have been bad. They just traded
Yeah.
for Joe Flacco, who's going to start. I'm surprised. I thought they'd give him a week. And it was 14 and a half. Like it's not a bet. I need to see like a 21-point win. I need to see something. You have like I said, you have the worst loss of the year to the Browns, and then you followed it up with a tie. A tie. What I say, a tie is a kiss with your sister. No, I need to see a blowout win for the Packers. I need to see it to have some level buying in on what everybody's talking about. I feel like everybody's saying this is amazing. It's like go into a museum and like look at this amazing piece of art, and I'm like, it's a banana stuck on the wall. I don't get it. Like I need to see something from the Packers. So that's more a bet. That's just something that I need to see.
I love it. I love it because I see some of the craziest art in some of these people's homes. I'm like, you really spent $100,000 on this,
That's what it feels like. Micah Parsons is the art on the
right?
wall. It's like Mike, you really spent 96 million, whatever is the highest paid non-quarterback is hanging on the
Yeah,
wall, and he just gave up 40
yeah.
points. I need to see this. That's what I need to see. So, but my favorite bet would probably be Seattle. I think Seattle 1.5. I think Jacksonville has the come down effect. They have less rest coming off a Monday night. On top of that, I think Seattle's just a better team. I think that's my favorite bet. One that I like, but I'm a little worried about is I spoke highly about New England. I think they're more than three. They're favored 3.5 over the Saints. I think they're more than that. But I don't want to bet it just because I'm afraid of what I just said about Jacksonville. What if they have a come down effect? So I'm a little worried about the New England game. Otherwise, I would bet that game. So Seattle's my favorite bet. I think the 7.5-point teams, I think all three actually cover, including tonight. Although I don't like touching division games, I wouldn't touch tonight. And yeah, I need to see Green Bay, not so much from a betting standpoint, but I gotta see a blowout. I gotta see it.
I really like your favorite bet, Seattle Seahawks, -1.5 on the road. As we mentioned last week, Seattle Seahawks are really good on the road, and that come down effect is real. After a Kansas City Chiefs, prime time Monday Night Football victory, the Jacksonville Jaguars are almost destined to lose. Once
That's what it
again, I
feels
think
like.
The Colts, the Eagles, and the Rams are absolutely going to blow out. I don't want to
Hmm.
necessarily bet on the Bengals, but now they got Joe Flacco. The Packers are not good versus wide receivers. Chase just had a monster game. Chase wants to be back in the conversation with one of the top, wide receivers. He's
Hmm.
so sick of Jake Browning. I'm sure he's ecstatic, even though it's only Joe Flacco, but ecstatic to get somebody relevant, behind quarterback. That offensive line is so bad, so I don't necessarily want to bet on them, but 14.5 is high for a team that I don't have full faith in, and a team, once again,
Hmm.
that's not exactly great versus what the Bengals are good at. But
Hmm.
I think overall, we got some great matchups this week. As I mentioned before, Kansas City hosting Detroit Lions, Tampa Bay hosting San Francisco 49ers, even Baltimore hosting the Rams. Baltimore, are they really gonna go like, I mean, I'm sure I'm betting on it, but like they're about to go 1-5. Oof,
And like,
that's rough.
yeah, I mean,
Jacksonville
speaking of bets,
hosting
actually,
Seattle. Yeah, go for it.
I do like. Now that I think about it, I do like the Rams to cover 7.5, like enough to bet on
Me
it.
too. Absolutely.
Cooper Rush at that Baltimore, and now I would mention the Monday night effect. Let's go the other way around. The Rams had the extra rest from Thursday, and instead of the come down, they had the opposite. They had the bad loss taste in your mouth. So that's a team that's going to want to pounce even harder. So even though, yeah, you got the hook at 7.5, when you get off a bad loss, you're more likely to kind of hold down, put your foot on the gas, and make sure that you win by at least 14 or even 10. Hell, 8 covers. So I do like the Rams at 7.5 with that extra rest. I think that plays well for them to cover too. I think the Colts cover too, but there's no like special motivation or anything there. If anything, the Cardinals have a weird loss, so that's less enticing to me. But I think the Rams 7.5 point looks like another really good one to me that I would like. I would bet on. Yeah. And maybe the final one that jumps out, I'll throw in one more, is the Bills. Because again, I really believe I'm a big believer in looking at the teams last week. The
Sure.
Bills
Bounce
have a
back.
loss. Josh Allen had his, you saw him in the interview what he said. I believe his words were that the offense played piss poor. So you want to talk about bounce back teams? I knocked the Bills a little earlier today. Atlanta has not been impressive since I think we jinxed them. The show when we spoke about like, oh, they look really impressive. Since then, they've been bad. The Bills have a little extra to prove, so
I
I
want
like
to
that one too.
see I want to see the Falcons versus the Bills. Like honestly, there's so many sneaky matchups that I'm really excited about this week. All right, so we got a monster night for Philadelphia fans. We got the Philadelphia Phillies just start off
Nice.
in LA, game 4 versus the Dodgers. Oh man, nerdy sports audience, I really hope the Phillies are alive next week when we talk, and we got the Eagles about to pounce on Scotty's Giants tonight. I will be watching a lot of
Gentle.
sports tonight. I have warned my girlfriend 4 weeks that tonight's going to be a big night. So, she's out with her girlfriends right now. So,
There you go.
I got to get to this Philadelphia Phillies game. So, thank you for joining us. Please like, subscribe. Sorry, this is only an audio version, but my video just wasn't working this week. But as always, Scotty,
Keep it nerdy.
peace.